Included in one of Margaret Sanger's educational materials on women's rights and contraceptives, she stated, "No woman can call herself free until she can consciously choose whether she will or will not be a mother." Margaret Sanger was one of the most influential women activists during the 20th century, who positively changed the lives of millions of women through research, education, and invention. In this speech, I will inform you about Margaret Sanger's rise to fame. I will continue telling you about how she impacted the lives of many women and how she influenced me. Finally, I will tell you why you should be familiar with Margaret Sanger. Margaret Louisa Higgins Sanger was born in 1879 into a relatively poor family in Corning, New York. Her mother had several miscarriages, and Margaret believed that the pregnancies took a toll on her mother's health and caused her early death. As Margaret got older, her mother's lifestyle was everything she became to hate. She spent most of her life cooking, cleaning, and caring for her 11 children. As you may know, women in society have been looked at as the inferior gender since the beginning of history. Their most significant professions were wifehood and motherhood. According to the 13th century Christian scholar Thomas Aquinas, woman was created to be man's helpmeet or better half, but her unique role is in conception. Women did not have the decision of whether they wanted to have children or not. However, Margaret had a plan that would change the lives of women with one simple pill. She began her journey by moving to White Plains, New York, after graduating high school, where she took nurses training in hope of a better life. After training, she moved to the Lower East Side slums of New York City, where she treated the extremely poor. During her career here, she came across many women who begged her to give them information on how to avoid future pregnancies. These women were far too poor to properly care for another child. Because of the Comstock Act of 1873, which prohibited publications, devices, and medications related to contraception and abortions, women were resorting to the option of self-induced abortions. Many women were taking kicks, punches, and blows to the abdomen to bring about the abortion. An unsuccessful attempt to abort the fetus could cause lasting damage to the child and possibly lead to the death of the mother. Probably one of the biggest events that impacted Margaret's mission and pursuit in her life and career was a woman who she became familiar with that died shortly after performing an extreme self-induced abortion. She began studying everything she could about birth control methods. She started writing a monthly newspaper called The Woman Rebel and a magazine titled What Every Girl Should Know. However, this landed Margaret in some trouble due to the Comstock Act. After the release of only 6 issues of her newspaper, Margaret was charged with distributing obscene material through mail. She escaped to Europe before getting arrested to avoid a possible 5-year sentence. She continued studying birth control methods, visiting clinics, and meeting with medical researchers. In 1916, after returning to the United States, she opened the first birth control clinic. Sanger and her employees were arrested only 9 days after it opened. They were charged with providing information on contraception and fitting women for diaphragms, which Margaret had smuggled back into the United States from Europe. They spent 30 days in jail. Later, appealing her conviction, she scored a win for the birth control movement. The court made an exception in the existing law to allow doctors to prescribe contraception to their female patients for medical reasons. In 1923, she opened the Birth Control Clinical Research Bureau, the first legal birth control clinic in the United States, which is now known as Planned Parenthood today. In 1929, Sanger started the National Committee on Federal Legislation for Birth Control. The committee sought to make it legal for doctors to freely distribute birth control. Another hurdle was accomplished in 1936 when the U.S. Court of Appeals allowed birth control devices and related materials to be imported into the United States. Still seeking the magic pill, as Margaret called it, she continued to do research. Sanger recruited Gregory Pincus, a human reproduction expert, to work on the project. This research project would yield her most prized accomplishment, the first oral contraceptive, Inovid, which was approved by the Food and Drug Administration in 1960. Margaret Sanger's accomplishments have impacted my life because it has given me the opportunity to go to school to fulfill my dream of one day becoming a nurse, without the burden of having an unexpected child. As a younger sibling to my sister Ruth, I have watched her struggle to raise her children at a young age. Ruth was only 16 years old when she found out she was pregnant with her first son. Unfortunately, she did not have the drive to finish high school while raising him. She is now 24 years old with a fourth child on the way. She struggles to pay bills with a low-paying job, even with the government assistance she qualifies for. She has given up her childhood years to raise children that she was not mentally and financially ready for. From her story, I've learned that I want better for myself. It is important for you to be familiar with Margaret Sanger and her accomplishments because she has given women a voice that says that they have their own rights and they can live a life that they choose freely. It has allowed women to fulfill their dreams of completing school, finding a career, or whatever have them without the burden of an unexpected child. Sanger based her work on the saying, "Every child should be a wanted child," and with the results of her achievements, there are no excuses for an unwanted child.